Hi there. So today we're talking about shifting timelines, both what timelines are in your life and what happens when we shift them, when we reach the end of one and move on to the next. These sometimes can also be seen or known as exit points. So if you look on your life, or if I look back on my life, it's easy to see that at a certain point, now my life has been marred with many different timelines in more extreme ways than for most people. There are other people who have more extreme ways than me, but mine have been very extreme. But if you look at how you've lived your life, you can see that from the age of, let's say, 18 to 22, you did a certain thing in your life. You went to a college somewhere, or you worked a certain job in your life, or something of that nature. Maybe you were dating a certain person. And maybe in your thought process, in your heart, you were like, yeah, I'm going to stay the rest of my life with this person. And then something came up, something happened that made you shift out of that timeline. Maybe the love fell apart. Maybe the relationship wasn't, maybe they or you weren't ready to actually be in a relationship. So the timeline changed. And we can see that, right? We were on track for something, just like we're going to school for a certain type of job. And we get out of that school and we don't find work in that field. Maybe we go somewhere else. We can see how, oh, so you were on track to go somewhere and suddenly something else showed up. It's almost easier to see when we look at marriages and relationships, how the timeline in one way of looking at it ultimately could be that two people stay together. It doesn't have to be that way. Not at all. But marriage is a very spiritual, powerful expression, ceremony, creating very strong bonds that we often don't acknowledge in our modern day world, that we often don't understand the depth of the commitment, the depth of the promises we have made. So when two people are walking side by side, and then suddenly one of them or both of them are like, yeah, we're done. You can see how what you expected to be your timeline suddenly shifted, poof. And you were in a completely new set of circumstances. Within a year, within a few months, your life went upside down, topsy-turvy, and it shifted. Now that doesn't always mean bad, right? Change is actually most of the time very healthy. But it does mean that you're on a new timeline, a new trajectory. And when we are approach the end of a timeline, it may look like a lot of things, it could be smooth sailing and suddenly you get an opportunity for something new and then suddenly everything shifts. Or you've gone to school for 2 years. And when you come out of school, everything shifts again because you're on a new You have new people around you, you have a new job, you have a new circumstance in your life. So everything shifted again. This is what happens when we shift timelines. And it doesn't have to be super magical. It could just be, if you look at your practical part of your life, so I was doing this, then something happened, I met this person and I went this way. It's very beautiful. There's absolutely nothing right or wrong with it, right? But we also want to start to become conscious. I'm on this trajectory right now. I'm on this timeline. What can I do if I want to stay on it? Or if I'm not happy with the timeline I'm in, what do I want to do to shift it? And how can I shift it intentionally? How can I, on purpose, spiritually healthy, soulfully, shift my timeline to a higher dimension, to another frequency, maybe more aligned with love, maybe more aligned with health, maybe more aligned with joy. Whatever it is that you feel you would like more in your life, you can start to see, so hanging out with this group of people and taking the same action over and over hasn't really led me to a good place now. So this timeline I'm on is actually not that great. Can I shift out of it? Could I move somewhere? Could I change jobs? Can I just change friends? And that's not to be mean to anybody. It's just when you're done with a certain frequency, a certain lesson in your life, it is important. It's actually imperative that you listen to, oh, I think I'm done. So just like we talk about alcoholism for every now and then, right? An alcoholic who has been drinking will have many options to change their timeline. And at some point when you reach a bottom, you may be, oh goodness, yeah, I've done it this time, now I gotta change. And if you're fortunate enough to at the same time run into maybe sober people, maybe you recognize that my old crowd is not for me anymore because they're not helping me to stay sober, and then at the same time you run into some healthy people. So suddenly your trajectory for your life is changing. And instead of continuing down on this downward trend, you now have interrupted that timeline by making choices such as, I'm not going to drink anymore, I'm not going to do this or that anymore, I'm not going to behave in this or that way anymore. And that same thing goes for seeking love, right? If you're always on an app, if you always keep going there and you're expecting new results, but so far the last whatever, how many days, I don't know, I haven't used an app, but the people who have, right? You've tried 50 times, you've tried 100 times and it hasn't worked. Is it time to try something else? Is it time to change the trajectory of where you're looking for love? Is it time to change your inner relationship to how you see love, how you see energy flow, how you see your life, the trajectory of your life? Is it time to shift that? Are there people around you that are being very angry? Or are you very angry? Maybe there's a way to shift the narrative. How do we take responsibility for our inner self? How do we take responsibility for our lives in a healthy manner? How do we shift the timeline? Because in my life, many timelines were very close to ending in my physical death. There were many times I was close to dying physically, and then something would shift last second, and I just could feel something new coming in. And that could go also, I was also involved with some very, I guess, violent times in my life. And every time something got very close to being super violent, I would have my voices in my head, the angels, right? They would be, Marcus, this is not right. This is not right for you. And I would always be given the choice of changing the trajectory last second or not. Because there were many times that were in a heavy duty vibration with some true violence involved that never happened. Because I was able to listen to those messages that came through. And of course I'm super grateful, because it would have changed the trajectory of my whole life. So the more aware we can become of where we are in our trajectory, the more aware we can become, oh, if I make different choices, life looks different. If I make better choices for myself, what comes to my life changes. And suddenly we all have this growth process. We all have this love coming up inside of us. So, timelines, we go on a timeline until we're done or until we're ready to shift out of it. New timelines jump in and we're ready when we're ready. Sometimes a new timeline can come in as easily as when you go on vacation somewhere and you meet a new person and they inspire you to do something new with your life. That's a shift in a timeline. It's only when we are constantly stuck in the same loop that it's very hard to shift out of timelines in those places. Or if we're convinced that we are right, then life doesn't have a chance to flow through us, yeah? All right. I hope that made some sense to you. Hope you could look at your own life a little bit and maybe be encouraged to see what can I do to make different choices so my timelines look different. Yes? All right. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. There'll be more videos to come. Please click like and subscribe if this spoke to you. Have a beautiful, lovely day. Namaste and aho.